Welcome back to Leading Blind. Today we are going to discuss the 2001 film Frailty, directed and starring Bill Paxton, as well as Matthew McConaughey, Powers Booth, Thomas O'Leary, and Jeremy Sumpter. This movie stumped me. I was having a really hard time making a recording and telling you guys the plot, so I had to watch the movie again and actually write down the plot step for step so I would remember to put things, at least mostly, in the right order without having to jump 45 minutes backwards to say, oh, by the way, this payoff here, it's because of this. So here's hoping this review makes sense. FBI agent Doyle, played by Powers Booth, enters his FBI building in Texas to meet with a man who is asked to speak to the leading agent in a case for the God's Hand killer. The man who is asked to see him is Matthew McConaughey's character, Fenton Meeks. And he says, I'm here because I need to tell you I know who the God's Hand killer is, and it is my brother Adam. Playing along, Agent Doyle asks how he knows this, and Fenton explains that his brother had called him earlier that day, said he couldn't take it anymore, that demons were everywhere and he couldn't fight them, and then killed himself. And that he had also been reminded by his brother of a promise he made when they were children to bury him in the local rose garden where they grew up. Agent Doyle calls that local police station, which is in Meat, a fictional town in Thurman County, and the deputy who answers the phone says, oh yes, I know him, he caused a ruckus here, he stole an ambulance, and his brother's body. But they're not interested in pressing charges, as Agent Doyle tells Fenton, and he says you damn well should be under arrest, but they don't, as long as you return the ambulance, they don't care. Which explains why there's an ambulance parked out front of the FBI building. Doyle reasonably asks, how do you know your brother is the God's Hand killer? And Fenton says, well, it has to do with when we were kids. And the rest of the movie cuts between him talking to Doyle and flashbacks of Fenton and Adam with their father, played by Bill Paxton, growing up. Young Fenton and young Adam are played by Matt O'Leary and James Sumpter, respectively. They are the children of a widowed mechanic, and one day their dad wakes them up in the middle of the night, says that he was visited by an angel, and the angel told him that the end of the world was near, the final battle was already being fought on Earth, and that there were demons that had been let loose from hell in preparation to fight. And it was going to be his job and the job of his sons, among with another few chosen around the world, to destroy these demons. He says that the angel's going to give him a list of who he's got to destroy. He's going to be sent weapons, and God will protect them from ever being found by, people who might think they're just serial killers. At first, Fenton doesn't believe this at all. Actually, he goes through the whole story basically not believing it at all. He thinks Dad's just gone around the bend, he's nuts, and Adam is just a staunch believer that whatever Dad says has got to be true. So, through the course of the story, Fenton is torn between wanting to tell authorities, protecting his little brother, and running away from home. Because he loves his father and he loves his brother, but he's also very scared of his father once everything starts happening. His father brings home a pipe, an axe, a pair of gloves, and eventually a van. And he starts kidnapping people, bringing them home and killing them. And they dismember them and bury them in the rose garden. And each time this happens, he takes off the gloves to touch his victims. And Adam insists that he sees the demons for what they are, just like his father does when he does this. But Fenton's like, you guys are both nuts. I don't see anything, and this perplexes Dad. Eventually, though, Dad, deciding that the angel has told him something about Fenton he doesn't like and doesn't admit to right away, that he's going to prove the angel wrong. he's going to put Fenton through labor and a lot of prayer and have him prove the angel wrong. He digs a cellar to put under their shed so they have somewhere to bring their demons when they dispatch them before burying them in the rose garden. When he goes to bring the next victim home, Fenton runs away, finally goes to the sheriff, tells him everything, and the sheriff does not believe it. But he still goes to talk with Dad. Bill Paxton's character is credited as Dad. And because Fenton is so insistent, they decide, all right, well, will you please show me the cellar or this will shut him up? They do go to the cellar, but as he's walking down the stairs, Dad smacks him in the head with the axe and kills him. He's very, very sick about this. He says, you made me murder a man. I've been destroying demons and you just made me murder a good man. And he's physically sick. He's sobbing. He's clearly upset about this. So he then tells Fenton to come into the cellar with him. And he sends Adam into the house. He says, the angel told me you're a demon. I don't want to believe it. And he locks Fenton in the cellar. And he leaves them locked in, the door nailed shut for days until he almost starves to death. And when he is let out, he says, Dad, I saw God. I believe you. I saw him. I know it's all true. Adam is upset because, my brother got to see God. All I ever get to see are demons. And Dad says, in a few days, when you're strong enough, we'll go out again and you'll have your turn. Now that you know, you'll see it for yourself and we can do what we were set upon to do. When they bring the supposed demon home, Fenton, instead of raising the axe to kill this victim, turns the axe on his father and kills him. He's crying when he does it, I think, and it's kind of heartbreaking and shocking. And his dad, while he's dying, whispers something to the little brother Adam, and Adam just kind of looks at Fenton. And while Fenton is trying to untie the victim of this very foul, nasty man that they've kidnapped, because he's obviously a douchebag, if not a demon, Adam comes running and screaming at them with the axe raised over his head, and he kills the guy. And as they bury the bodies in the rose garden, Fenton says to Adam, please, promise me that if you ever destroy me, you will bury me here in the rose garden. Now, it does go back to modern times, to Fenton telling this story a couple of times to Agent Doyle. They talk about Agent Doyle's mother and how she was murdered by a man they never caught. They talk about how Agent Doyle thinks that Fenton has a good instinct for being a cop and asks if he ever thought about becoming a cop. And mostly they just talk about, well, why didn't you go to the authorities sooner? Why didn't you come to me sooner when you knew what your brother was doing? There are things like that. But I don't want to give away the ending to this one. I don't want to tell you every single detail of all the scenes that happens. I told you the straightest arrow summary. And it gives away a lot, but not everything. And it gives away that Fenton killed his dad, but given the fact that from the very beginning he thought his dad was abso-fucking-lutely nuts, that's not way too much of a surprise. It makes sense it would come down to that, or betraying his father in some other way, like having him institutionalized. This is a great movie. It was directed wonderfully by Bill Paxton. The script, some of the lines are a little hokey and cheesy, but it just tries to paint that Norman Rockwell family type of a picture, and it does a fairly good job of it until it gets to be shattered. Bill Paxton acts wonderfully through this whole thing. I mean, I've never seen him in a role like this. I've seen him in Twister, I've seen him in Aliens, I've seen him in Apollo 13, I've seen him in a couple things, but I've never seen him in a role like this. It's so emotional, between the tender, loving dad, the supportive pop, the hard worker, the devout man. I mean, just so torn up when he has to kill the sheriff. So many things are wonderful about this movie. The kids, yeah, they can be a little bit of a wink at moments, but for the most part, they're wonderful. Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth actually have the least amount of real screen time, so it's hard to judge them, especially since most of Matthew McConaughey's lines are narration. But they also do a wonderful job, and I promise you, you will not see the end quite coming. And it is a jaw dropper. It still leaves open a little bit to interpretation, but especially if you have a background in things like faith or theology. If you look at the little holes that seem to be there, you can actually read where they plugged up the holes too. So, that having been said, and probably having given away a little bit of the twist that I just said, I highly recommend Frailty. I think I have it marked as a 4 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd. And by the way, you can find me there now. I'm new to Letterboxd. You can check out all the movies I have reviewed there, my ratings for them, other movies. I'm not going to be putting up too many reviews there for movies that I put up here to review, but you can find my rating if you're curious. I'm going to dispense with the polls for now because every time a poll has been voted on, it ends up being the movie I didn't want to do quite as much. And I have a harder time making the review. So for now, at least, the polls are going to go away for a little bit. I just need to review something that I passionately feel about. Every movie on my review list I feel deeply about and I want to review them, but I need to be in the right mood for every one of them. So going, oh crap, this is the one that was voted on, it's a little bit of a downer. So you can find the list of movies I intend to review on my Facebook page. And if you have a request out of that, you can certainly let me know, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get to it right away like it won a poll vote. I'm going to have some new tags coming up because I'm still not going back to the ones I mentioned when I first started the channel because I still am hoping to do those with people that I know. But I'm hoping to do a Nightmare on Elm Street tag soon. I'm hoping to do a Stephen King tag. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.